Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Drew Davis, your host of Learn How to See Better, the only podcast out there that will improve your vision the longer you listen. And for this episode, what I want to do is close out the month of March 2021, March Madness, with a few final thoughts on the mentality for how you kind of come into your 21 and make it the best year ever by getting it off to the best start ever. So I wanted to share some of those things because you know what? Sometimes you find yourself in the first quarter of the year or the first quarter of a new year coming to a close. And guess what? It might not feel like spring. It might not feel like summer. It might feel like fall. It might feel like winter. And you might be in a different phase in your life right now. But this is where you have to assess really where you're at, what you've got going on, and how you can use that to determine how much you put the pedal to the metal or not. So tune in, and I hope you like this episode. Thanks. I titled this Post-March Madness because, it's a little bit of madness. You know, we're juggling kids, businesses, birthdays, celebrations, all sorts of other things. And hopefully you guys are all doing well. And we're entering into the spring season. It's March Madness. I always like to use sports references, maybe because I played sports. I'm not a basketball player, but I used to participate in March Madness. I went to the U of A, the Wildcats. A little short story. They won it all my freshman year. So I got a chance to see a little town go bananas. If I gave you the play-by-play, you would be like, what? It was pure pandemonium. If you ever seen just people acting crazy in public. But it was so much fun. It was safe. Nobody got hurt. And it was a great celebration. But, you know, the funny thing about that is how does that apply, that sports example of March Madness and winning a championship apply to a business setting, to a life setting, to a goal setting? Get it? Why I think that's relevant is, one, it's almost like the seasons, right? You guys have seen us post and share a few things about our tower garden, and you get to a point where certain things are in their season to bloom. And you got to let nature run its course, right? You got to let nature run its course, and when certain things are in their time, they're going to shine. And so that was the excitement about March Madness. As I was a college student watching this school that had an amazing athletics program always seemed to rise to the occasion. And it has to do with the training, the preparation steps that you go through. And the idea is, if you keep digging in the trenches long enough, you keep doing the grunt work, soon enough, you'll be ready to show and tell what you've been up to. You know, soon enough, it'll be time to harvest. You get to show and tell, you know, the seeds that you've been sowing, right? And so when you look at that from a business standpoint and a life standpoint, there's going to be seasons of life, and you have to recognize those seasons and know when it's your time to shine. So typically the way this will transition into a business setting is you can look at each quarter of the year in life and in business as a measurement point. Many of you guys are familiar with the idea of the book Traction and how there's an entrepreneur operating system, EOS, and you put together this vision, this traction organizer, and you have this mechanism and framework for putting your goals together. And so now we're in March. We're in the first quarter of the year coming to a close. How many of you have been in the trenches, and now is your time to shine, right? I know some of you have been diligently putting things in place. Maybe you're taking care and nurturing your rental garden of properties and making sure they're getting all the care and feeding they need to have a ripe crop of tenants paying you on time every month, right? How many of us can increase our cash flow by just tending to the assets that we already have and putting a little TLC into those? Maybe a coat of paint, maybe a little bit of yard appeal, right? You know that it's coming time to market that property. Go ahead and make that small investment that you can, knowing it's going to pay dividends. So March Madness can be that time that you take that culmination of efforts you've been making, let's say so far this year, January and February. What have you been up to? You know, now is the month where you get to start saying, well, I put 60 days of dedicated focus into a particular activity. What results am I starting to see? And these can be little micro changes in life or business, right? In life, it could be, you know, just being focused on getting up, you know, before 8 a.m. if you're not an early riser, or going to bed before 1 a.m. if you're a night owl. We can always look at little gauges and games and measurement tools that we can play and use to our advantage to help us measure and know that we got to pace ourselves in life. But then there's times where you want to be able to kind of turn up the heat a little bit to reach a certain objective. Now, it's important in life to understand that when you're looking at these windows of go hard, don't go hard, the season may be dictated by what's happening in your life, right? We're in the spring season right now, but some people might be dealing with, you know, death, divorce, downsizing, debt. You know, think of all the motivations that make sellers want to sell. But just, you know, rattling through the D's, right? You might be going through a personal challenge in your world right now that makes it feel more like a winter. But 6 months ago, you might have been in the, you know, celebrating the time of your life. So you got to know and be able to go with the ebb and the flow of life. And if you know you have things coming as far as life events like a baby, you know, you might be able to plan a little bit better around those and say, how do I plan to adjust my business to the pace of life? So many people will frequently adjust their life to the pace of business. That's easier said than done, right? The idea is, I think what makes some of these life transitions less stressful is you learn that sometimes they're planned for And maybe that's just the realm of having, a bunch of kids running around, that there's always an unpredictable moment. But you can actually bake in windows of slower time into your business if you're willing to put in the work now, right? There's times when we're adjusting the pace of what we're doing and making room in our business to enjoy presence of life. Because we've probably shared with you guys, there's been a time where we looked at it like, yeah, we're having a new kid, but we got this pipeline full and these contracts that got to close, and we got to make sure that happens. The ambitious part of you can say, yeah, that's super cool, but over time you'll see that maybe that doesn't really tickle your fancy over and over and over again when you realize how that early on attention and focus can really work wonders. That's kind of one thing we've had to learn over time. You can get lopsided in the the management of your space and your time, but sometimes just stepping back to revisit what your objectives are can be a level set. Because one of my mentors once told me, he said, you could go on 4 or 5 hours of sleep for about 30 days in a row. But then after that, you're going to need a break, or you're going to crash, you're going to burn, you're going to, your tank's going to run out, your immune system's going to fold. You got to have a point at which you recharge your batteries. So there can be those instances where you say, okay, well, if I'm going to enter a period of time where I'm making sure that there's the focus on the family, which is really all the time. But when you come and look at those spurts of intense attention necessary, it's like, okay, if you bake in that time knowing that in the spring, my attention is going to be more into my family and kind of having to put up barriers, then if you plan around that, it's a lot easier to actually pull off. And so I don't know how many of you guys have ever juggled with that or struggled with that, but we saw that sometimes, success can be tempting and make you think that, just put the kids in front of the TV another hour, we'll make another $5,000. It's like, that might seem cool in concept, but you've got to look at sustainability and longevity of that when you make some of those family decisions. Because I get that a lot of our why is our family and we want to be able to provide for our family, but you don't want to be so lopsided with things as you plan them out to overload your back with what you can actually get done and accomplished. So if you can plan for those times, then all of a sudden, like I said, the dedicated landlord that takes care of his portfolio of rental properties and nurtures those and spends some of that time and gets the vacancies filled and gets the properties upgraded and makes a few enhancements to communications with tenants, spends that time in the January, February season, and then come March, you get your properties filled with new tenants, you got new cash flow, and you're enjoying the fruits of that labor for potentially years to come. But you had to have that period of time where you were willing to quote unquote sacrifice and stack that energy focus. So if you've ever had those times, again, one of the things my mentor Jim Rohn taught me was to make sure that you pay your family back with interest. If there's going to be that time where it's like, okay, your mama's got to go back to work or daddy's got to go to work or whatever is relevant to where you're at in your world right now, as you continue to enhance your life created by design, you're going to have those moments that that there's going to be adjustments, and you can plan for those and turn up and turn down as needed. It's all at your control. And knowing that is going to help you feel a lot more empowered about you running your business and your business not running you. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at some of those tips to try and balance the world of life and business. We share the ahas that we have along the way because we fumbled along the way sometimes, and we've made our errors in judgment about the right thing to do at the right time. And sometimes it's just it's a little bit of trial and error as you go through the journey. But for some of you're hearing this for the first time, and you might be early in that journey, and this saves you something, saves you some stress. And for some of you might be just nodding your heads in agreement, like, yeah, it's good that you see that now, young grasshopper. Wait till they're teenagers, and you're thinking, oh man, there's more. I thought this is all I had to figure out. But we've always got to look at going to the next level, and kind of each experience that we have as we graduate with experience. So yeah, that was a couple of things I wanted to share about March Madness and that idea of using that mentality to try and get your head in the game in whatever game that you're trying to play. So if you're looking to crank something up, there's the spring campaign. You can get the new marketing campaign going, right? You can use spring, you can use, St. Patrick's Day, you can use March Madness, you can use Easter, you can use all these different symbolic, dates and times to be their own January 1st for you. When do you want to reset the clock? And when do you want to be able to say, hey, here's the time I turn it on, here's the time I turn it off? One of the wealthiest people that I've ever had the chance to meet and spend physical time with and learn from, it was an 8-figure guy, had residual income out the wazoo. And he told me, he said his year ends by the 19th of December every year, because he's completed all of his goals and he's already completed his planning for the complete year ahead. Now, you want to talk about somebody on top of their game. That's how you think like a multimillionaire. You already have your whole year planned out a year in advance. Maybe that's how the wealthy do it, right? But in this case, the relevant thing was he was able to say, hey, the last 10 days of the year where everybody's scrambling to get stuff done, I'm chillaxing, I'm recharging my batteries, I'm reflecting. and then projecting, right? All that good positive energy into the year to come. So these are some of the little different manipulations and ahas we've had. I like to use, it's March Madness. It might be the 7th inning stretch. It might be Super Bowl Sunday. It's game time. It's opening day. Like, take your pick. Take these symbols and use them to act as a mechanism of control for yourself. It's kind of like a life hack, a biohack. I need to get my head in the game for March. It was cold in January and February, so I didn't eat good, or I didn't work out, or I didn't read any books, or I didn't market, or I didn't do this, do that, do the other. You can beat yourself all over the place, but it's March, baby, right? It's March Madness. Get your, what's his name, Dick Vitale voice. It's March Madness, baby. And get that hat on. Wear the hat. Play the role. Play the part, You can have fun with this. Gamify life, and that's how you can level up. So if you need to get your head in the game in some kind of way, look at the fact that it's the month of March. The seasons are changing. The ice is melting most places. It's getting windy. Go fly a kite. See hot air balloons. The seasons are changing, and you can rotate your energy and lean into that. The sun's rising earlier in the sky. So you night owls, if you want to try and change the leaf, it's March Madness. Try and start rising with the sun while you still can before June gets here and you realize 5 a.m. is not the place you want to start as you climb the ladder of this new skill and developed discipline. So how many of you guys have used other little biohacks like that to change the channel, to lean into the secret and switch up your frequencies? We'd love to know. You have the right mindset to be having the path of success that you want to enjoy in your business right now. That's very important. And most of all, when you kind of slap the umbrella philosophical piece on top, you all ought to be looking for ways to live with definiteness and get that business life harmony, so you can really achieve and experience what you set out to when you initially saw this vehicle of investing or real estate or whatever it is you do as an entrepreneur. You bought into that, right? That promise is still there to be actualized upon. So you owe it to yourself to get what's due to be yours. You just got to put in a little bit of work to be able to cash that. For 730 days and counting, this podcast has been introduced to the world and sharing information designed to help you in key areas of your life, health, wealth, relationships, and helping you to take stock of your outlook on life and your perspectives, because it's the quality of our outlook that dictates the quality of our outcomes. And so in this podcast, I've been aiming to do just that, to help you understand different ways that I've learned how to reframe experiences that I've had and to take certain lessons of life and apply those. And the results obtained are worthy of sharing with the masses.